Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I am Marta, your host, and today's episode, number 37, is one that I truly believe will touch your heart and spark something within your soul. Our guest today is someone whose journey gracefully bridges science and spirituality, intellect and intuition, logic and soul. She embodies both the healer of the body and the guide of the spirit. Karen Crawford is a professional astrologer with a unique blend of medical expertise and spiritual insight. After practicing as an emergency physician for 17 years, she retired from clinical work in 2022, bringing with her a wealth of experience in patient care, empathy, and a deep understanding of the human condition. With a strong foundation in allopathic medicine and a deep interest in metaphysical, spiritual, and holistic practices, Karen offers a multifaceted approach to astrology. This integration of diverse disciplines creates a deeply enriching and transformative experience for her clients, fostering both healing and personal growth. Outside of her work, Karen enjoys reading, running, and creating artwork. Karen, welcome. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much, Marta. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Okay, so as you know, anyone who's watched it or listened, this is a very perfectly imperfect conversation, and we are going to see where the spirit takes us. But I'm just thinking that perhaps we can start at the very beginning. Not that anything is linear here, but if we could start with your professional journey, because you spent 17 years in emergency medicine in a space where life and death are literally present every single day. So that's an intense path, not only intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually too. So I'm wondering if you could share with the listeners and viewers what are some of the biggest lessons that time taught you, not just a doctor, but as a human being holding space for people in their most vulnerable moments.
Wow, I've learned a lot of lessons. And I think the most important thing was just to be human with the patients, putting myself in their shoes when I would talk about things. One of my favorite things to do was to grab and like a paper towel and like draw, what I was trying to explain to somebody because I really felt like empowering people by educating them about what's going on with their bodies. And at the same time, it was interesting because, in one room, you might have someone who just needed stitches. And then the next room, someone might have lost a child. So having this range of compartmentalization, I think, in a way, is what helped me get through this, but really trying to be present for each patient. And I think that's one of the things that I retrospectively was maybe one of my bigger gifts as a physician was really being with a person in front of me. And so it really taught me how to grow the compassion because I don't think that's something you can really teach. I think it's something experiential because in medical school, you don't really, there's not a lot of, hey, you're probably an empath, so you might want to think
Mm.
about working on your emotional boundaries and things like that. Because I was deeply affected by my patients. I think the first 2 years I would, worry about my patients or have nightmares or things like that. So I never really developed that thick skin that I think you really need to survive long term in emergency medicine because I was very worried about my patients, connected to my patients. But over time, I did start to learn how to separate myself more from that and just kind of hold space in a way that was helpful for both the patient and myself. And just being in all these different situations with people and seeing this range of humanity and the range of things that potentially can go wrong because truth is definitely stranger than fiction in the emergency department. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you could tell about how did you come to an understanding that you needed to protect your energy, and did you uh, receive downloads from the spirit world, or did you encounter some books? Like what happened? What sparked your curiosity, and how did you like? created your own maybe rituals in order to protect yourself.
Interesting. So I didn't really become spiritual until about 2017. I just knew
Mm-hmm.
that I started feeling really kind of gunky, kind of just not really enjoying my job as much as I used to, feeling kind of heavy. And then I went to the Canyon Ranch in Tucson, Arizona, and I met a woman named Leslie Lupo. And she did a tarot reading for me because I wasn't even going to
Mm-hmm.
sign up for one, but they help you book fun things and activities to do. And as we were leaving the area, the lady's like, "Did you book a tarot reading?" I'm like, "No," like kind of like, why would I? And she's like, "You really should. It might change your life." And I was like, "All right." And it was the last thing I did that day. And one of the things that Leslie Lupo teaches is peers versus patients. So peers are the people that give to you as much as you give to them. And there's this beautiful flow of energy. And then patients are the people that you might notice that you're just kind of continuously giving to them, to help them and whatever. And so I think at some point you have to decide, and obviously in a professional sense, I knew my patients are my patients, but just understanding that flow of energy was the first thing that she kind of taught me. And then I think for me, like I was intuitive at work, but I didn't really realize how how I could actually make choices to help myself feel more empowered in situations. So just understanding like my body is my own teacher in a way. So when I would have my stomach clenching or if I felt whatever, then it's like, oh, maybe I should do something different, or understanding that's a way it's communicating with me, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
thing. So and then as I was finishing up my practice, I would use like Florida water when I would come home, and I would just and what I would do is, Suzanne Giesemann has the 3 minute sip of the divine. So where we had our office before I go into my shifts, I would just sit there. I set my timer for 3 minutes before I started my shift, and I'm just like, what do I need to know today? Help me serve the patients as best I can. Please be with me and move through me and help me be the best physician possible, best healer possible, that kind of thing. So it really did help.
Beautiful. One question has popped into my mind because I know you talk about your medical career being your gift. I'm just curious, when did you become aware, or when have you started asking yourself questions around our human purpose, whether there is something beyond the physical, and really why we are here on Earth? I'm curious about that.
Well, that was even before I became a doctor. But
Okay.
I remember the first patient I had that passed. He came in with shortness of breath, chest pain, and I he ended up coding while he was in the hospital, meaning he lost his heartbeat, he stopped breathing on his own, and I had the cardiologist evaluating him with me, and we worked on him for however long, and we were unable to resuscitate him. And I remember walking out into this beautiful blue sky and just thinking, what just happened? And how why are we here? What are we here to do? And just losing that first patient as an attending just really hit me hard. And so that really started me questioning. And also when my father was gravely ill, he in was it 2015, we almost lost him. And that was probably my STE, my spiritually transformative experience, where I was just aware of something so much more than myself. Like I have a concrete physician skill set, but there was something even more beyond that that helped me realize there's helpers, there's guides, there's something more than just what's in my own packed meat suit, my own version of reality. There's something that was guiding me that day and helping us get through that. So I feel like it was something that's very incremental. And I think each little piece was a stepping stone to get me to where I am now. And I know that this is just a stepping stone for like the continual evolution, that ever onward upward spiral thing.
Hmm. Beautiful. And I'm now curious because I know you are more into like spirituality and metaphysical knowledge right now. So you definitely have a strong foundation in allopathic medicine, which is like so based on evidence, clinical trials, medication. And I'm very curious how now you've started combining it with the metaphysical with the holistic approach. Yes, to
Well,
treating your patients, clients.
yeah, and I think what guided me to that was, if you have an appendicitis, you're having a stroke, you're having a heart attack, we got you. Like allopathic medicine, 100% we need to do these things. And what I realized is there were so many people that had these chronic conditions that, allopathic medicine was just kind of throwing drugs at or, unable to fully treat. And so that made me really question, how are we, I feel like we're missing the boat for a lot of people. And I felt in general disappointed in my doctoring because we weren't able to help that. And so then when I started learning about the energy body and how our thoughts affect our emotions, which they affect the chemicals, right? I mean, dopamine and serotonin, there's the feel good
Mm-hmm.
ones, got cortisol and stress hormones. So it all started to make more sense to me. And it really ends up bringing it to the fact that we get to choose what we want to think. Like if we have repetitive thoughts that are like not helpful, neurons that wire together, fire together, like, well, we can just build a new highway to the side that takes us through like the meadow flowers. There's a way we can reframe things. There's a way that we can work through our experiences. And so the metaphysical, I think it's nice that I just understand the body from a mechanical point of view, but I feel like the metaphysical helps me understand like how we can actually use these like avatars. It's kind of like, there's so much more than just, oh, my ankle hurts because whatever. Well, maybe it's like, you're worried about moving forward in this thing or something, or, there's different ways you can understand it. So the chakra systems, and it's just like looking at the energy bodies, all these different things. And it's really, I feel like each lens is slightly different, but when we put all of them together, we see the big picture. So I feel like that's how the metaphysical is helping me, is I'm learning about the things that didn't quite make sense to me from an allopathic point of view, but now it's like fleshed out more fully.
Mhm. Beautiful, thank you. And if we can add another lens now, astrology. I am very curious about the medical astrology, but in general, first, like what drew you to astrology? And then if you can explain about different types of astrology and anything that astrology can help your clients. Like, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So there's, back in the day, you really weren't a doctor without being an astrologer. Like it was all part of this comprehensive ancient wisdom knowledge. And it used to be that when you were so sick, you would bring your urine to the astrologer, and they're called the piss prophets.
Mhm.
Your the temperature chart, things like that. So there's what's really interesting about astrology is there's so many different layers and ways you can look at the birth chart. And so the big two divisions are basically the Vedic or the Jyotish astrology and then the Western astrology. And I'm a Western astrologer. And then you have some more divisions within that. There's traditional astrology, which looks at the seven basic planets, the classical planets. And then we have the modern planets, and that's more modern astrology ascribes into that. I've also studied evolutionary astrology. Stephen Forrest, it's like the why did you get the chart you have? And
Mhm.
then now I'm studying the medical astrology, and it's very interesting because, for example, it gives you an idea of someone's constitution, like their general, like how their body is kind of wired, things that are kind of highlighted in their chart that, someone might want to pay attention to. And so medical astrology gives you a deeper sense of what are you here to learn in this lifetime about your body, because we do know our bodies are our greatest teachers as well as our families. And then we can also see how those things may unfold in like a psychosocial level or an emotional level or things like that. And then there's also like branches like horary, where you ask a question, electional astrology, where you find the best date, and then mundane astrology. Mundane astrology is studying like the world events. So let's say you want to predict the next president. Well, somebody who's well versed, or like, a hurricane or, things like that, they understand the rhythms and cycles of the world on a general level and then go through that.
Mhm. When you offer astrology readings to your clients, do you intuitively choose which astrology to apply, which school, or do they have to choose the type of reading that they would like to have with you? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so now that I'm offering more readings, I have a description for each. So that way people can kind of, modern astrology is really good for psychological astrology. Like, why is my, like, how am I the way I am? What's my soul purpose? What am I trying to do? Like my GPS, And then
Mhm.
the traditional is more about your personality, but there's so much more looking at like your financial destiny, your family destiny, your love relationships, and your career. So it's all those other things in that reading. And then the medical astrology also looks at who you are as a person, because we know that defines so much of what happens within our life, and then also your health destiny in this lifetime.
Mhm. I love it. And you've just provided a deeper understanding, I hope, to the viewers and listeners that there's something deeper to do in relation to natal charts. It's not just a natal chart, that you can actually obtain so much information about who we are, why we are here, and who we are meant maybe to become. So it's not just superficial. There's so much depth to it.
Oh, layers and layers and layers, because if something doesn't express one way that you think it's going to be, the excellent astrologer says, aha, it's probably this way, because if you think about it, if you think about just the basic understanding of what these planets are and, what they govern or do in our lives, and then you combine it with other planets. I mean, there's so many different things it could be, right? So it's really starting to hone in on what about this beautiful, I think we're all like kind of like fingerprints, we're so all unique and different because of the way that we, personally, I believe that we're all pure energy, we're all pure light, we're all pure love. And then we kind of like, talk with our guides, our angels, our team, upstairs, even though it's just right here, and we're like, okay, this time I want to learn about this and this and this. And then like this big cosmic wheel upon wheel upon wheel is clicking. And it's like they kind of know like right when those right parents are going to be in that right timing. And they kind of, Stephen Forrest talks about people going off to the end of the diving board and the angels push you to say, bye, have fun. You jump the diving board into your meat suit. And so it's kind of like, I feel like it's an umbilical cord or like a tethering. My current teacher, Michael Bryan, talks about the golden thread that the chart weaves. And so when we can kind of hold on to that while we're swinging through the forests of our, crazy lives, it kind of grounds us, And I feel like, and what I've grown to understand is that our astrology chart is the pattern we will hold if we never really become conscious, So it's like, so if we are really working on these lessons, we're trying to grow, we can kind of transcend that momentum the chart would potentially hold us in. And so that's how we kind of evolve, is that, maybe that second time this thing happens to you, you kind of wake up on some way. So I feel like the whole idea of this astrological chart is to give you a sense of what are the challenges or things I want to grow through in this lifetime, and then giving us the challenge to move beyond momentum and take ourselves through choice and through awareness, because I think everything comes down to consciousness, to say, okay, I'm trusting my internal GPS system of my heart and my gut or whatever, people connect with, versus just my head. And then moving forward through our lives and making choices that are aligned with love instead of fear.
Beautiful. I would like to talk about, you have that beautiful quote, by Howard Thurman on the website, and you've mentioned about now becoming alive. And in a way, I truly believe that we have a choice whether we want to grow and whether we want to come alive. I'm going to read a quote here. Some quoting Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. And then go and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Could you expand on that quote and maybe give some simple tools how the viewers and listeners can become more aware and become more alive?
Yes. So I feel like we all have some amount of conditioning put within us. We have to act a certain way, we have to be a certain way. And I think the beauty of becoming, I think if you think about puzzle pieces, they're all made a certain way to fit within the entire puzzle. And
Mhm.
if we start to saw off or gnaw off part of our knobbies and our bumpies, we're not going to fit the part that we were supposed to be in a sense. So I feel like when we're coming alive, I think the best word I can use that is joy. So when
Mm.
you are doing the things that you love, so the tool would be awareness of, like, let's say you're a dancer, and when you put on this certain music, you are like, oh my gosh, how did that hour and a half go by? Because you were just in the flow, you're creative, you are loving it. So I think the biggest tool that people can have is being present within themselves and
Mm.
finding things that spark. I like Marie Manucherry. She talks about, like, what brings you that joy, what brings you that bliss, and the positivity. So she always talks about having things around your desk that make you happy. And I've got this
Mm.
cute little dinosaur who's like
Mm.
adorable, and I've got this cute little like scallop,
Mm.
and I've got this beautiful little lemon, and
Mm.
anything that I have that I look at, it just brings me joy. And so I just surround myself with joy. And so, people might be saying, okay, there's nothing to be joyful about in this world. It's like crazy right now. Yes, there's a lot going on, but we can also fill our field with things that remind us that we all are love. We come from love. And I really feel like we're just here to create relationships, to help each other, to walk each other home, like Ram Dass said. So I think the biggest tool is, what are you feeding your brain? What are you spending your thoughts on? And how can you really kind of find the magic in the world? Because I think this, people, I think people might think I'm quite woo woo now that I've, jumped
Mm.
off the allopathic medical train, but I have so much more fun. I mean, the magic is
Yes.
absolutely what we're looking for. So I think joy and magic is what certainly makes me come alive. And I think when other people realize that they're part of the magic too, that we're all part of the magic, I think that really sets up this kind of cascade of just enjoying who you are and not feeling. I think a lot of times we would have, should have, could have ourselves, or like the self-doubt is so big. And at the end of the day, like it's like we're already perfect inside. So I just feel like self-acceptance and forgiveness for things, and then really stepping into compassion and growing this feeling of unconditional love that we can kind of bring down in some way, I think is a great way to come alive.
Hmm. Beautiful. And I think it's so important. I know you've mentioned about it that you can experience joy here and now the way you are. And so many people still perceive, well, the way we could also have a conversation about, well, Western medicine and then like the woo industry, but like so many people think that the analytical mind is superior towards intuition. So then we have so many people who will want to achieve things, obtain, climb career ladder, get certain amount of income, get a house. So they're like delaying their joy and happiness because they want to tick things that they believe are going to make them happy. So I'd like to maybe dive a little bit more into that because I truly believe that we can experience joy right now, and those external factors or things that we are trying to achieve in this lifetime, I think they're just an illusion. They're not going to give us so much more of those very things that you've mentioned, including magic, joy, and love.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, money does not buy you happiness, but it gives you experiences and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, for me, for example, for me, yeah, I was in this amazing career, whatever. And I was like, I was in my Subaru, and I hit some ice, whatever. And I'm like, wow, if I died right now, I died. You know what I mean? Like, I was just so unhappy. And the me that I was, like 2016 or whatever, 2017 versus the me now, it's just, I wouldn't trade that for the world. Do you know what I mean? So I think when people start to realize that, the material things, they have their place, but that's so temporal. And when we find the peace that's within us at all times, like, and we all have it. I remember there's this beautiful saying where they're like, okay, where should we hide this whatever for the humanity, right? And we'll put it in the ocean. Oh, they'll explore it and they'll find it. We'll put it in the sky and they'll end up going to the space. And it's like, let's put it inside of them, because that inward journey is the most beautiful journey that we can take, and that is finding that peace that's always within us and always connected. So I think when people realize that we all have it within us, like you think about like the variety of human beings out there, and we all have the same abundance, we have the same flow, we have the same love that is by far our greatest treasure. I think that's what's going to unite humanity, and then we can hopefully get rid of all this other, stuff that
Mhm.
we're using as contrast to help us go within, to help us figure it out. Because I just feel like there's like these pendulums that happen all through time, and hopefully eventually as we continue to grow and evolve as a humanity, we'll have less swings, and we'll keep going more towards that center and more towards that love. But yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about love? Because again, I keep hearing from my clients or other people, oh no, self-love. Oh no, don't tell me I have to love myself more. But it's so important, and everything comes back to the inner work, to the within. And so could you expand a little bit more about us returning to love? That's what I truly believe, that part of our life experience is to really remove all of those layers, preconditionings, and then when we are ready to cross over, then we become one with the source. We become love. But anything that comes to your mind, anything about the importance of self-love?
One of my very best friends, her name is Emily Telfair, and she's a naturopath. We met in college. At the age of 18, she knew she wanted to do naturopathic medicine, and I knew I wanted to do allopathic. So anyway,
Mhm.
so she is her place is called the Heart Space, and she has this heartbound kit that helps you kind of like be aware, like I feel like the journey to self-love is difficult for people because emotions can be difficult to process, right? And we kind of shove those down. And when we do the work, it's work.
Mhm.
But I think that, from the conditioning, we always kind of feel like there's this magical thing that people say, like, this is the way you should be. And again, when we don't fit that ideal, we feel like there's something wrong with us. Or if we're raised in a family that, maybe doesn't appreciate your uniqueness in some way, we internalize that. And and so if you think about, okay, well, if God is in each one of us and source is in each one of us, how could I possibly be treating source or God that way when we're talking to ourselves in such difficult ways? And so I feel like the self-love thing, it's people, I think the more that you do the things that you honestly, truly love, that's when you're growing, because you're in that flow state. I think that's when you're growing that self love, because then you realize, oh, like this is my happy place. Like, I think in some ways too, I think people are afraid of being happy. Like, it's like, well, if I'm happy, it could go
Mhm.
away. Uh, but it's also, I feel like happiness is also, and not like I'm just happy, but like that peace
Mhm.
happy, okay. I feel like that is your barometer, it's your guide, it's your tethered string. It's like that strand that connects each and every one of us. So self-love, um we're kind of all like, when people get compliments, they just like get, ooh, like,
Mhm.
don't say nice things about me. It's like, why
Mhm.
would you be like that? Because you're amazing. So I think one of the ways that you can start in that journey is by looking for the amazingness in other people. And so when you really see somebody shining, you're like, oh my God, I love the way you just sang that song. Like, you just really brought something important and special to me, right? And then for yourself, like giving yourself that same love, like, wow, I just drew that frog and it is like the best frog I've ever drawn,
Mhm.
right? So I feel like when we're recognizing the amazingness that each one of us are, all of our individual talents, all of our gifts that we're given, I think that can make it easier to fall into that self-love. And if it's kind of too far right now, you can think about, well, what are the things you loved doing when you were a kid before you kind of really got conditioned, and like what
Mm-hmm.
were the things that brought you that childlike joy? And I think that's one of the ways we can tap into that self-love. And um, it's interesting because that's when I think, I feel like with school age kids, that's kind of like when we start to like, if you look at like a 5-year-old playing on a playground, like they got like, they have like a wand and they're being Harry Potter or something, and they're in their own imaginary realm, right? So I feel like we kind of get that creativity beaten out of us in some way by this system. So I think that self-love is connected to our creativity, it's connected to our joy, it's connected to our the things that just light us up. So if you're having trouble with the self-love, I think finding the things that bring you that joy that you can lose yourself within, and then do those things, make time for it,
Mm-hmm.
and just being aware of when you're starting to say those woulda, shoulda, couldas to yourself, and then flipping it, reframing it, like and always using when we see it as opportunities for us to choose something different. That's where the power comes in, because a lot of us, like, I didn't realize how awful I was to myself. I was always beating myself up, like, oh, I should have
Mm-hmm.
done this better, I should have done that better, I suck at this, I suck at that. And now it's like when I start to do that, I'm like, oh, that's terrible, like, why would I do that to myself, right? So it's a process, it's a practice, and I think that's what mindfulness is about too, is being aware of what we're saying in our heads, what we're doing, our actions. And the self-love can bring us back to holding ourselves with the same care and compassion and tenderness we would to like a baby, or like, I have a little mini golden doodle named Izzy, and I just cherish her, right? So if it's Marie Manuchehri talks about how if you can't quite get there to yourself, think about the animal that you love most in your life, or like, those things, and like how tender you are with them, and then bring that to yourself and apply that.
I love it. Oh, we've been revealing like so many layers of your expertise here, but there's so much more magic to it. I would love for us to discuss a little bit about you being a psychic medium. Because I know that, well, you studied for a year with Colin Bates, and I know you sit in development circles, and you've been doing some practice readings. So, could you tell the viewers and listeners, when did you first realize that you were a medium? Let's start from that.
Well, I believe when I was in 6th grade, I had an experience of seeing spirit. Like I saw something very unusual, really pretty much freaked me out. And I think I just kind of turned everything off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, During my medical career, I was super lucky in, you want to be good and lucky, in medicine, right? You want to be intuitive and have the skill set. So I think there were a couple of times in there where my inner knowing helped me out. And then so I started taking Suzanne Giesman's course, her first shift network course in 2019. And I did like, I don't know, 4 or 5 courses with her. And then I wasn't really getting a lot. Like I was kind of like having some things happen, but I was like, oh, this is maybe I'm just not cut out for this. I'm too analytical. I'm too hard on myself. I'm too much of a perfectionist. I take it too seriously. I want it so badly that I took a break. I took a break because I'm not the kind of person that can sit for 20 minutes and meditate. That's just not
Mm-hmm.
me. So I realized when I was running, in nature, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like I just felt so expansive, and I would find these amazing feathers. I'd have these amazing downloads, and I'm like, oh, this is how we work. Like nature is my special space. And so I will meditate, but it's only like 3 to 5 minutes. I might sit in the power for, 5 to 10 minutes. And that's where Colin Bates trance work really helped me, because I could really kind of lose myself, and I could sit for 40 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, I did have a thought or whatever for like
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. So it's so cool. But then it was, and I think for me, it was difficult for me to put myself out there. Like I felt like I had to know like the sex of the person, the relationship, how they died. And I was like, I was just so worried I would never get it. And I just put myself under all this pressure. So then I joined Very Soul, which is a great platform for mediums, reading for mediums to start practicing, by Sally Hawk. She's a Suzanne Giesman student. And I started having some successes there, but it was really when I joined this development circle, and now it's like and I'm still figuring out how I work because I'm very logical, but I'm also intuitive. And so I think I just kind of get stuff in my mind. So for example, just the other day I was doing a reading and I knew it was a male. I wasn't sure about the relationship, but I knew the male was older. So it could have been a family member or a family friend. And I was like, I know that there were some sugar related health issues like diabetes. And I'm also seeing a Jolly Rancher, but I also said Jolly Roger. So Jolly Rancher, Jolly Roger. And when you're saying words, what I've learned is I can pick up on the power behind the words. Like I'm like, oh, I know something special about this. And it turns out that my sitter, she holds up this Jolly Rancher. She's like, I was going to eat it before, but I decided not to. So she had the Jolly Rancher, and the spirit's name was Roger. So got me to say the name, got me to, so it's like, so for me, it's really been the past, I would say, year and a half that I've really started to feel like my connections are meaningful. My sitter can understand what I'm doing, and it's been a complete thing of trust. It's been a complete thing of just say what I get because sometimes it's really strange things. It's like, and I know what's so fun is when I sit with like another astrologer, I'll start just going off in astrology terms. Like I won't even worry if the person is like I don't know if they're astrologer, but I'm just knowing, or if they're a nurse, I'll say all these medical terms. So it's kind of fun to let my brain be picked and to just kind of have whatever comes out. And I like that because if I try to figure it out and understand it, that's where I get into trouble. I get in my head. So I just say what I get. I just trust this for the highest good because that's the intention I set. And so it's really been about a year and a half now that I've been
Mm-hmm.
developing for that.
I love it. And it's so beautiful that you've mentioned that the minute you get out of your head and you allow yourself to channel all of those messages, then the messages, the evidence becomes so, well, evidential and clearer. And I used to study for years in very spiritualist churches, and I left it because I have a very developed analytical brain. So it was very difficult for me to start working as a psychic medium. I had to do so much inner work and the work with my ego to make sure that my ego would not interrupt me because ego would try and question whether it was real, whether I was not making things up, whether I didn't read like the cues non-verbal, like we all go through everything. But I know I learned a lot from sitting in those circles in different spiritualist churches. As you've mentioned, I it taught me discipline and I learned how to sit in power. But what I've realized, and I know you've mentioned about it, is that it was so freeing for me to start reading the way it felt natural to me, and that the way the spirit world wanted me to convey the messages. Because when you are studying in spiritualist churches, well, it's my biased opinion, they basically mold and try to create replica of one medium after another, because you have to say whether someone's a male, female, age, passing, and then you can deliver the message. Whereas I know from my experience, and like so many clients thanked me for not taking them through the passing of their loved one. Especially, I channeled initially, I would channel like so many children on the other side or people who committed suicide. And
Mhm.
those parents would be so grateful that I didn't insist on the medical evidence, but the spirit delivered that gem of information, like you've mentioned, in a form of a name. So I've learned that you do not always have to go within the script, but if you allow the spirit world to give you the information in a way that it feels natural to them and to you, I feel like this is the best way to really bring healing to your sitter.
And that's the
Mm.
goal of mediumship is to be helpful and healing and to can be that connection and that voice for spirit and to serve spirit in that way. So if we're serving spirit and they want to kind of just give me whatever, like I'm because it's going to be helpful and healing. That's our intention. So I really love that. I resonate with you regarding the delivery and I mean, yeah, it's like I don't know what the best thing is. Like spirit's gonna know what the best thing is for this sitter. So just yeah, getting out of the way, letting it happen organically with love is absolutely, it's more fun that way. Like, isn't
Yes.
this supposed to be fun?
And it should be fun. And you've been talking about joy, fun, but it's the same with the mediumship. And this is what so many people are surprised because I always set an intention that apart from the healing messages, speed, accuracy, I want to bring a component of joy and magic to my readings. Because this is what I always set an intention. And then, like, my clients come to an understanding that, of course, there's no pain and suffering on the other side, but also that our loved ones they want to, well, they play tricks on me, like various of my loved ones, and they make jokes and they really interfere with technology. So, like, making our clients realize that you can still have fun, you can grieve, but at the same time, you can still share happy memories, you can still have that interaction. I think it helps a lot.
Absolutely, because it's, if you think about it, if you really believe that we just die and we're gone, yeah, that's so stressful. That's so sad, right? But then
Mm.
when you open yourself, well, what if? What the Pascal's wager, right? Like maybe I'm wrong, whatever. But then when you really open yourself up to it, for example, like my dog, I never had a dog before. My first dog passed last year, February 22nd. I have had so many amazing signs from him. I'm like my dog, even. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, and really, it's, and I'm not like I share it with people that are interested. I'm not like proselytizing or whatever.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it really, when we share each other's stories, and so that's one of the reasons why I love, Suzanne Giesemann does these monthly connections, and she talks about the evidence she's getting. It's like, wow, like maybe I can do that too, or like, you know what I mean? So it's just so joyous because it really is reinfusing that magic into our world, that we are so much more than just a human being. And I think
Mm.
the more that, I think there's many ways to get there, like astrology, mediumship, all these different things, but finding the ones that, and not everybody has to be a medium, but I think the more that you do that inner work, the more that you take that time to really love and understand yourself, you're going to have magical things happen. There will be synchronicities. I guarantee it. 100%.
Could you talk a little bit about magic and synchronicities in your life? Anything that you would like to share? Because I think there's never enough of magic and joy.
Yeah, I have this book and I started writing this in 2021. And I have like these feathers posted, and I've got like, just, so for example, like for a while I was having these really strange things where somebody would say something to me and then I would watch like a TV show at night and it would be that exact phrase. And it was like, okay, how is that happening? Because it brought more significance to that phrase. So it's like, so for me, it's repetitive numbers, it's what people say, it's what I'm drawn to. And I think for the magic is really discerning when something special is happening, because I think there's always special stuff happening all the time. And I kind of picture like my guides and my angels being like, oh, she's gonna get this one, she's almost there. And then I get it, I'm like, thank you. And so it's like this continuous feedback loop, because when we notice the magic and we celebrate it, it raises our vibration. And then when we share with other people, they're like, oh my God, that happened to you? That's so cool. And it raises their vibration. So I
Mhm.
feel like, so when you're out and about and, like there was a song somebody played and I was walking and I saw this graffiti and it had that word, Viva Ray. And like Viva Ray, and the song was Viva Ray. Like, and then I saw a license plate that said Viva Ray. So it's like, I mean, there's just no other explanation that there's, when we all see, so this is part of Suzanne's teaching for the awakened ways, like we're all part of the web. So it's like, okay, how is this particular tendril going to strike a chord within my own resonance, my own energetic being? And then when those things happen, it's like, oh, that was so cool how you did that, right? So I think people need to realize that we are all special. We are all capable of having these experiences. And if you feel like you're not worthy of it or you're not good enough to have these experiences, you need to sit with that, because that is not the truth. And so we open ourselves up more and more to these things start happening. Write them down because I didn't believe in them to begin with. I'm like, this
Mhm.
is crazy. This isn't going to ever happen for me. And now I have this book that's just chock full of fun stuff that just,
Yes.
if I'm having a bad day, I read it, and it's like, oh, so, it's going to be individual to each person. So it's like figuring out the way the universe communicates with you and brings you that messaging or that knowing that something really special just happened and then celebrating it and saying thank you. Somebody, Linda Kubota Bird is an amazing astrologer, and I think she said something like, thank you, can I have some more please?
Yes. Never enough. Bring it more. Bring more magic. Bring
Bring
more
more.
joy. Yes.
I'm ready.
I know you've mentioned well, not a little bit, but like, could you mention more about what has mediumship taught you, about yourself? What have you learned about yourself?
That I need to love myself the way I get my information. Because I was like, I want to be like that person. They talk the whole time. There's no pauses. They're fabulous. For me, I get my information and I pause. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 seconds, but I'm just listening. I'm just waiting. So it taught me to love the way that I'm built, the way that I work in the world, to honor my own gifts and to celebrate my own successes as joyful. And so I mean, I think they say comparison is a thief of joy or something like that. So
Mhm.
it taught me, yeah, I've been competitive my whole life. I had to get into medical school and I'm a
Mhm.
runner and yeah, I'm competitive. I have to get the Wordle in 3. Sometimes, I love it when I get it 2. It's kind of rare, but I'm very competitive as a person. So I can love that side of me, but I can also love the part of me that just can relax and just be because I could never just be. People are like, oh, you need to just be. I'm like, what are you talking about? Seriously. And then I
Mhm.
went to this like 2 year period where I felt like I was in the middle of the ocean, doggy paddling and being like, okay, I have no idea where I'm going and I have no idea what's happening with me. I was in a total pause situation. And I feel like that pause situation was time for me to start sitting with myself and going through the things and figuring it out. And I feel like now we're always working on ourselves 100%, but I can trust that because I've seen the progress. Like, we look behind a boat and you can see all the wakes and things like that. I can just see now how it's divinely set up. It was perfect timing, and I'm grateful for all of it. So yeah.
Thank you. What's the final message or what are the messages that you would like to leave the viewers and listeners with? Anything that comes to your mind?
That comes to my mind. I would love everyone to just connect with themselves in a way that they can see themselves as this beautiful quantum of light and love and joy, and to just be that for other people, to find what brings them, what helps them come alive, and to explore their creativity. And really it's ultimately about figuring out and unearthing. It's like it's almost like an unearthing or a chiseling away of all the gunk that we kind of pick up. And so that way your light can shine more easily, and that you can just feel you're here for a reason, you're here for a purpose. If you aren't sure what it is, go find it, go explore it.
Beautiful. And finally, if you could share with the viewers and listeners, what are your offerings, how people can work with you, and where they can find you. And I'm going to add all of the details under the description of the podcast as well.
Thank you. So you can find me at karensmithcrawford.com, and I do a variety of astrology readings. And yeah, so I don't really have other offerings up there just yet, but stay tuned. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Karen. It's been an honor, and I've had so much fun listening. I feel like we could have gone and record like a 3 hour episode. But I really, really enjoyed. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to all of the viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much for having me on, Marta. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so thankful for the experience.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Bye.